This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 1801, Social Security, How Secure and When to Take It, Part 2, by J.L. Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. Now, today's post is a continuation from yesterday. So if you're new here, I'd recommend listening to yesterday's episode first. But if you're all caught up, let's hear part 2 and continue optimizing your life. Social Security, How Secure and When to Take It, Part 2, by J.L. Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. When should I begin taking the money? Once you reach age 62, you can begin receiving Social Security. The catch is, the sooner you start, the smaller your checks. The longer you delay, up until age 70, the bigger the check. Of course, the longer you delay, the fewer the years you'll be collecting. Countless articles have been written about strategies attempting to answer the question as to when to begin receiving benefits. All kinds of fancy, sometimes complex strategies are described. I've read a bunch, and my view in the end is it's really pretty simple. Since the government actuary tables are as good as they get, the payments are pretty much spot on with the odds. Here's what, in order, you have to ask yourself. Number 1, when do I need the money? If you genuinely need the money right now, nothing else matters. But if you can delay, you might find some advantages. Number 2, do you think Social Security will collapse and stop paying? If you believe this, clearly you'll want to collect while the collecting is good. For what it's worth, I happen to think you're wrong, and I'll explain why further on. Number 3, how long are you going to live? The longer you live, the more advantageous delaying is. The break-even point between age 62 and 68 is around age 82 to 85. If you think you'll die before then, you might want to take the money sooner. And number 4, unless you're married and you are the higher earning spouse, then you'll also want to consider how long your spouse will live. If your spouse is likely to outlive you, upon your passing, he or she will be able to trade in their lower Social Security payments for your bigger checks. For example, my wife and I are both in good health, but looking at family histories and because women outlive men, my best guess is that she'll survive me, maybe by as much as 2 decades. I figure I'm good to maybe 80, 85. Were I alone, I'd start drawing ASAP. But she could easily see 95 or 100. When I die, she'll have the option of switching from her benefit to mine. Since mine will be larger, that's what she'll do. To maximize that check for her, I'll delay taking my benefit until I'm 70. She'll start hers at 66. Another thing worth considering, as we reach advanced age, our mental acuity diminishes. Managing our investments becomes harder. We become more reliant on others. At that point, a monthly government check has more value than just the dollars. Of course, there's no way to know what the future really holds. The best we can do is play the odds. The odds look to me like Social Security is doomed. I'm taking mine ASAP. There are those who choose to take their benefits the moment they turn 62, even though the amount is reduced. Some simply need the money right now and have no choice. But others are acting out of fear. They believe Social Security will collapse in their lifetime, and they want to get what they can while they can. I'm not worried. If you're 55 or older, you'll collect every dime. Here's why. Number 1, Social Security is backed by the most powerful lobby in history, AARP. Number 2, geezers are an increasing proportion of the population. Number 3, geezers vote. Number 4, politicians rarely try to take anything away from a large population that votes. And number 5, this is why all the possible solutions being suggested will affect only those age 55 and under. Well, that's all well and good, but I'm under age 55. What about me? For anyone 55 and over, Social Security has turned out to be a pretty great deal. But mine and the generations older than I are likely the last that will enjoy such lofty benefits. The system is in trouble and clearly changes will have to be made. For those under 55 today, the deal is likely to be a lot less sweet. You can expect, number one, to get 100% of any promised benefits, but the promises will be smaller. Number two, it will cost you more. Income caps, the amount of your income subject to Social Security tax, will continue to be raised. In 2003, the cap was $87,000. For 2013, it was $113,700. As of 2020, it was $137,700. That's a trend that will continue. Number three, the full retirement age will continue to rise. It used to be 65. For me, it's 66. For anyone born in 1960 or later, it's 67. Those ages will continue to rise. Number four, benefits may become means tested. That is based on your need rather than what you paid in. Number five, your benefit will be subject to income tax if your income is over a certain amount. In 2020 for singles, this begins over $25,000. For married filing jointly, over $34,000. And number six, Congress will continue to tinker, and in the end, Social Security will still be there. So, is Social Security a good deal? Well, it kind of depends. For the fiscally responsible types who follow this blog, probably not. If you took that 6.2% of your income you are compelled to contribute, along with the 6.2% your employer is compelled to kick in, and invested it over the decades using the strategies presented here, you'd likely be far, far ahead. Plus, your money would be in your hands and not subject to the whims of the government. But that's just the few of us. I'm realistic enough to know most people are goofs with their money. Without Social Security, many would be back to living on cat food. Not only would the rest of us have to read about their sad plight, something much more draconian than Social Security might well be implemented to remedy the situation. So yes, for most people, it will turn out to be a good deal, and probably for society as a whole, but not for you or me. Recommendation: plan your financial future assuming Social Security will not be there for you. Live below your means, invest the surplus, avoid debt, and accumulate FU money. Be independent financially and otherwise. If or when Social Security comes through, enjoy. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled Social Security, How Secure and When to Take It by JL Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. Look, the job market right now is booming, but did you know the average time it takes to fill a job? 24 days. And the average price to hire a new employee? $4,000. I'm guessing you don't have that kind of time or money to waste. But don't worry, Gusto to the rescue. What's Gusto, you ask? For the past decade, Gusto's been building a modern HR platform to help you take care of your team and keep them around for the long haul. With Gusto's full-service payroll, comprehensive benefits, and built-in learning and development tools, you can keep your team happy and engaged, even if you're remote. And when you've got tough decisions on your hands, Gusto surfaces actionable data and insights to make things easier. In fact, it's made things much easier for our podcast team here. If all this sounds good and you want to join the 200,000 plus businesses using Gusto today, head to gusto.com/OFD and get 3 months free. That's 3 months of Gusto for free only at gusto.com/OFD. I'm with JL Collins in that I assume Social Security just won't be available for me, or that the benefit would be such a small amount that it's not worth thinking about. I'm pretty much a typical millennial in that regard. According to a recent Transamerica survey, 80% of millennials worry that Social Security won't be around when we need it. And while none of us can know the future, I did see a few compelling arguments as to why some experts feel that Social Security will survive. While the trust fund is scheduled to be depleted by 2035 now, it's probable Congress will intervene as it did in 1977 and 1983 to strengthen Social Security's finances. That's because Social Security is an enormously popular program with bipartisan support and influential lobbies, including the almighty AARP. I also might be underestimating the value of Social Security to begin with. The Urban Institute estimates that millennials are projected to receive twice as much as the current benefit, about $1 million for an average income single adult and $2 million for a couple. Some Social Security experts say that a worst-case scenario would be to assume you'll get 70 to 80% of what your Social Security statement projects. And here's something I learned while reading about this. You should make sure your earnings are reported correctly to Social Security every 2 to 3 years. Your future Social Security check will be based on your 35 highest earning years, but they need to be reported accurately, which doesn't always happen. You can correct those errors, but it can be really difficult if you catch them decades from now. If your employer goes out of business before you catch any errors, the needed documents may be unavailable. So I, for one, will be setting up an account on the Social Security Administration's website to review my earnings, and I hope you do too. And that's another episode and weekend of Optimal Finance Daily in the books. Thank you for your support and for listening every day. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you tomorrow for Minimalist Monday, where your optimal life awaits.